Too much moonshine. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the second studio album released in 2012 by singer Bruno Mars. The album is called Unorthodox Jukebox, and I'm reviewing this in anticipation of his new album, 24K Magic. 24 Karat Magic, I should say, that's coming out just around the corner. So I, of course, will be reviewing that album. I don't know why I never reviewed Unorthodox Jukebox, but here we go. From the start, I was a fan of Bruno Mars's vocals. I thought he was great on the hook on Nothing on You, Billionaire, even though I did not like that song by Travie McCoy at all. I thought the hook sounded good and I could at least appreciate it for what it was. There was a talent from this young Hawaiian that had immigrated here into the United States and basically made a name for himself. He started with the Smeezingtons, this group that he founded, and it was a part of a trio, and they actually still do some production. It's not very often, but I know that they did the song All I Ask on Adele's album 25 last year. They came together, formed that in 2009, and he started singing on some of the hooks, and he started making a name for himself. Obviously, Nothing on You was a huge hit, and he started releasing songs of his own. In fact, his debut album, Doo-Wops and Hooligans, was very successful, and the Hooligans actually are the name of his band. They are his backing band that play live with him, and I feel like it just gives him a different feel. It helps him stand out from the majority of most pop stars. And right off the bat, we did get some more cliched songs like Grenade, Just the Way You Are, and while I can appreciate those for what they are, Bruno Mars really came into his own, started trying new things with this album, Unorthodox Jukebox, and I really dig it. I forgot how much I liked this album. Coming back to it, listening to it over the past couple of weeks or so, I've really been entranced with just what all is going on here. There's some fantastic songs, and for some reason in my mind, I had it etched up there that like Gorilla was one of the weaker songs, and I was like, that was a single, wasn't it? Didn't it have some really just absolutely ridiculous chorus on it? And for some reason, I just avoided it for pretty much years on end. But coming back to this album, I can easily say that that is one of my top favorites, if not the best song on this album for me personally. Bruno Mars made a record here that has a lot of different styles. It plays with everything from funk to more psychedelic and almost kind of post-rock leaning stuff to reggae and dub, and obviously pop stuff as well, influenced by the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson. I've always gotten that vibe from Bruno Mars just because of his stage presence, the band that goes along with him, just the funkiness of some of this music. I mean, listen to that lead single, Locked Out of Heaven. It's all about sex, wanting to get in there, and he is very clever with the way that he writes, and it does remind me of some of those amazing pop artists from back in the day. Locked Out of Heaven was that lead-off single, and I remember the first time I heard it, I fell in love. I still love this song. In fact, I love those just sampled and little knocking sounds that go in the background. Bum, 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 bum. I don't know, it reminds me of something like Pumped Up Kicks that Foster the People did. Just a fantastic song that I still can't get enough of. It's one of those classics that I feel like people are going to reflect on at the end of the decade 2020, best pop songs or even best songs of the 2010s. This is easily going to be one of those. Mars is very clever lyrically all throughout this album. It goes from storytelling to making things a little bit more abstract to using illusions in songs like Moonshine, where he seems to be talking about girls and relationships, but at the center of it, he's actually singing about the drink, kind of like Stella and All Time Low, and that being basically a bottle that he was singing about. This is the Moonshine. He's talking about all the places that it takes him to over this really groovy, just out there feel. I love the ambience and just the atmosphere that this track provides, the deep bass groove that it seems to fall into, and some of the other subtleties that you don't get in most pop music. I wish this had been released more as just like not a promotional single, but an actual single, because it's just that good. I want to talk about some of the songs that don't get enough love on this record. I mean, obviously you hear about Locked Out of Heaven and Treasure and When I Was Your Man more than anything else, and while those are great songs that we're going to touch on, I'm going to talk about some of the others, more specifically some ones that come towards the end of this record that I really thoroughly enjoy. The first of those being Natalie, a story of a gold-digging bitch that took all of Bruno Mars's, or else the character in this story's, money, and how he vows revenge on her. He's coming to find her. It's got a really jumpy, snappy chorus. It reminds me of maybe like an old Western revenge story or something like that, and it's really, really enjoyable as a result of that. Moneymaker Smile is another one that was co-produced with not only the Smeezing Tunes, but of course Diplo as well on this track, and you can definitely see his touches. This is, by Spotify standards, the least popular song on this album, and I do feel like it deserves some love just because it's unique. It has a different production style, obviously, different approach to the vocals, but Mars was really killing it on this track with his creativity. There's a few that really kick it back to some classic styles. If I Knew, the closing track on the standard edition of this album, reminds me of like the 60s, kind of like a swing, slow dance type thing, and it is a pretty enjoyable song. I will say that it is one of my least favorites, but Show Me is another one that really works in a different groove as well. I mentioned kind of dub and reggae earlier, more specifically kind of the reggae thing, incorporating pop elements as well, but Show Me is a tune that really no one was expecting from Bruno Mars, I don't think, especially in the context of this album. It's one, along with Moneymaker Smile, that really just stands out in the track listing just because of how different they are, for lack of a better word. Show Me is all about Mars trying to get this girl home. You know, he uses kind of the euphemisms, boom, 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 and kind of the stuff that's not so clever. It's a little bit cheesy, but you can't really deny the fact that the song at its core is pretty fun. I will say that it gets a little bit tired the more you listen to the album. It is among my least favorites here, but I still see good qualities in it. In terms of my absolute favorites on this album, you guys are probably thinking, oh, he's saving Treasure for last because that's one of his favorites. No, that's not true. Honestly, I've heard that song a few too many times. I just don't care for it. I had friends that played the hell out of it. The radio played it to death. And it's one of those songs that does feel a little bit more basic in what it has to offer us here. It's got kind of a predictable bass groove that shifts around in the background, and Mars's vocals and lyrical content on this one, I don't know. It's centered on this woman that he wants to throw a lot of praise and kind of adorn. I understand that, but it doesn't do much for me. My absolute three favorites on this album, starting with When I Was Your Man. One of the ballads here, pretty much the big ballad on the album. It did reach #1 in the United States. I believe it was just for 1 week, but I'm glad to see that song reach the top because it's a really powerful and emotive tune. You can write it off as just a cheesy ballad if you want to, but Mars soars with talent on this track. Over that hook, it's just massive. I should have brought you flowers, and he's seeing his girl with somebody else because he didn't treat her right. We've all heard the story before, but have we ever heard it done this well in ballad form? Just a piano and Bruno Mars and that voice. Perfect. Young Girls is another massive tune that you just want to take out a lighter and wave it in the wind to. I could hear this one being performed live, and I really wish that I could see Bruno and his band, the Hooligans, because I feel like that would just be a fantastic performance. Bruno Mars is an entertainer. He's a pop perfectionist, and if you have not read the Rolling Stone cover story that they did with him in anticipation of his new album, I highly recommend doing so. I will link it in the description down below. Young Girls is one of those tracks that does come off very anthemic, and he's talking about something that's very relatable, I'm sure, for a lot of people. He gets dragged into these relationships with just seeing a pretty face. All you young wild girls, you'll be the death of me, the death of me. And the way that that vocal range just really shows its capacity on this tune. I love the flow, the piano, the atmosphere of the tune. Everything really just sets it on fire. It's perfect. It doesn't have to be a huge roaring banger in order to be super, super powerful. The production throughout this entire album is very much commendable. I love how they put so much emphasis on bass, guitar, drums, keyboards, all these other sounds that work their way in and make it sound so crisp and fantastic while also highlighting Mars's vocals. And the best song on this album, in my opinion, is Gorilla. It showcases all of these things. Has a massive bridge, that chiming piano lead on this, and it's really just talking about obviously making love like gorillas, basically fucking like your animals. And he starts off this song talking about how he's been drinking, he's on a cocaine kick, and that obviously gives you a feeling of elitism. You're on top of the world. And he talks about that with Moonshine as well. But obviously drugs and liquor are something that play into Mars's lifestyle and his writing style, and on this one it plays out in massive form. I don't know why this song wasn't bigger than it was. Maybe it's because it couldn't quite reach as wide of an audience. This is like the R R-rated song here. Give it to me, motherfucker. I mean, come on. I guess you can't really say that on the radio, and it's hard to make an edit that makes sense, but this song has it all. The bridge, the soaring chorus that I just cannot listen to. It gives me chills down my spine. It is so good. I love this song, and if you have to check out one song on this album, maybe you've only heard like the typical singles like Locked Out of Heaven, Treasure, or even When I Was Your Man, have to recommend this one. I will link to the album to stream it in the description down below. I do hope you guys enjoyed my review of Unorthodox Jukebox. My rating for this, 4.5 out of 5. I really think this is a fantastic pop album. I hope Bruno Mars can deliver again in his next release. Thanks so much for watching this throwback review today. Don't forget to smash the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. We're testing out the new thing right now that YouTube is doing, the end slate thing, so you can click right below me to check out 2 recent videos that you might enjoy. You can find me on social media here. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon right here on ARTV.